what does a unit controller do? Okay, and when you're saying a unit, does it mean a subsidiary or a company? And what was the basic role all about? Or somebody who wants to understand what does unit controller do?
So a unit can be anything. It could be a division of a larger business.
Okay.
It could be a branch office, or it could be a newly set up entity.
When you were doing that unit controlling, FP&A was a part of your role.
Yes.
So if you could highlight 2 or 3 things that you learned during that FP&A role,
Sure.
that could help the audience.
FP&A, as the term itself says, involves a lot of forward-looking and predictive analysis in that sense, if I may put it. Now, of course, with the times evolving, you have AI to support you.
Right.
But back then, when I got into that career role, it was more of taking judgment calls based on historical, empirical data of how various things, various drivers like sales, raw material cost, other major costs like manpower.
When you look at the executive assistant, so generally under CFO's team,
Yes.
and I'm assuming this was a group CFO,
Group CFO, you're right.
right? So for the audience, how does a group CFO or a normal CFO differ? Hello guys, I hope everybody is doing good. Hi, this is Ganesh Nayak. I help finance professionals and students to excel in their career and become a better version of themselves. And I also help students who are preparing for competitive exams like CFA, FRM, ACCA, and SCR. And as a part of that journey, we also come out with a lot of podcasts where industry people come and talk about what different career opportunities are there and how to succeed in those career opportunities. Okay, so as a part of that discussion, I'm with Sarovar Sir, and we're going to be talking about his journey of being in the corporate of around 15 plus years of experience. And this podcast is going to be a mix of Hindi and English. So, Sarovar Sir, सबसे पहले आप एक ब्रीफ अपने बारे में अगर आप बता सको कि आपकी जर्नी कैसे स्टार्ट हुई.
Zarur, Ganesh. Thanks for having me here today.
Yeah.
And in terms of my journey, it's been a bumpy ride. As I was telling you some time back, I started off as a science student, just going back to my qualifications, and then I completed my BMS, which was just a very newly started degree and course at that time.
Right.
Post BMS, I did my MMS. In between those 2 degrees, I also dabbled into sales of
Wow.
sales of accounts, like which at that point in time, equity accounts was very.
अच्छा, demat accounts and all.
Yeah, demats, but not exactly that. But it was about setting up premisers
Okay.
and brokers, sub brokers, that kind of a business
okay.
we used to get for our principal. So after MMS, my real journey in finance started. In terms of my first job was as a unit controller, wherein I managed the entire finance activities, right from bookkeeping up to finalization of accounts, presenting the results to the stakeholders, presenting MIS on a monthly basis to my finance director as well as all the senior leadership. That's really set up the core foundation, because I was right there at the plant, doing the nuances of the business, of the operations, of all the cost drivers, understanding how things move, and what really makes numbers and success for any business.
Okay.
That really helped catapult my growth journey. From there, I got into niche areas such as FP&A. So my first FP&A role was with a company in Wagle. It was part of a global giant.
Okay.
So with this company, my role was primarily into budgeting and forecasting. A much deeper role, I would say, wherein I understood importance of deadlines of reporting, understood US GAAP, because we were supposed to report back to the US parent. So, and also bridging Indian GAAP to US GAAP for MIS as well as financial statements.
Okay.
This is where I also realized the importance of important tools like Oracle, Hyperion for reporting, because obviously complicated things like consolidation and reporting and budgets, again consolidation of budgets in various currencies. So we were reporting to regional headquarters. So
Okay.
Indian rupees to yuan, then from yuan to US dollars.
Okay.
So understanding all these nuances, intercompany transactions, all were part of my job. Reporting to Indian leadership, to Chinese leadership, as well as to US leadership, preparing
Okay.
waterfall charts, variances. So again, like I said, a deeper understanding of FP&A
Hmm.
and dealing with various stakeholders, local and international. Enriching experience in that sense. Over here, I spent about 24 months in this role, and then I was in search for something which really helped me build on this. So, and then this opportunity came up where I joined as a EA to the Group CFO in
Executive assistant to Group CFO.
executive assistant to Group CFO in a large India-based multinational.
Hmm.
It's a very closely held promoter-driven company. So, from a MNC to a promoter-driven company again,
Cultural
differences. So navigating all those challenges.
Hmm.
Now suddenly I was thrust into an area. So what really mattered in this role, Ganesh, if you ask me, is apart from the deeper understanding of financial concepts, accounting and reporting, etc., was management of stakeholders, which I learned in the previous job.
Okay.
So EA to the Group CFO is someone working very closely with the entire leadership. So we have customers within the group, mainly internal customers. So dealing with the other corporate heads,
Right.
the CEOs within the group, and then the MD and the promoter family. So managing these important stakeholders was something which I learned in the previous job.
Okay.
That's really what fed into this. Now this was a much wider role and a deeper role at the same time. So apart from understanding concepts, you need to apply them and at a very fast pace on various activities.
Okay.
So during a day in a EA's job, you could be reviewing a legal document, or you could be looking at a balance sheet, or the next hour you would be in a meeting reporting about certain things to your boss.
I'll come in more detail about this executive role. So once you worked for EA as CFO, then what the transition was?
So one good thing that happened, and again, it was more about exposure than anything else, was I was working very closely with the MD of the group, and got noticed, and in a matter of 2 years or so, I was absorbed into the MD office. So from a EA to the Group CFO, I become a EA to the Managing Director. Now this role has its own challenges. It's not finance specific now. You're basically looking at all the functions that the MD has to look at.
Right.
So activities to do with HR, with IT, with marketing, all of those now come to your table also.
Okay.
You're supposed to go through them, brief, make concise reports, and help your boss understand it in the most specific things in a limited amount of time.
Right.
Also support with insights to help him make decisions in a faster way. Okay. So this is where right now I am. Okay. For a brief stint, I had an opportunity of working as a plant financial controller also.
Okay.
And at that point in time, I was looking at operations finance, and I had about 3 plants and the R&D function reporting to me.
Okay.
For the financial related. So it entails everything. You have to set budgets. You have to control expenses, and you have to basically approve all the expenses as per the budgeted cash flows, etc.
Right.
So it was more about controllership at the plant level. And then again, I've come back to the EA to the MD role.
EA to the MD role, right. Now, for the benefit of the audience, your first role that you started out was a unit controller. What does a unit controller do? Okay, and when you're saying a unit, does it mean a subsidiary or a company? And what was the basic role all about? Or somebody who wants to understand what does unit controller do?
Sure. So a unit can be anything. It could be a division of a larger business. Okay. It could be a branch office, or it could be a newly set up entity.
Okay.
So why I mentioned the unit is more to do with the size of the business. So in my case, it was a recent JV that the parent entity had with a US based entity, and that so it was started in 2007, and I joined them in 2009. So you can understand it was a relatively young business at that point in time. It has its own challenges. So as a unit controller, you are supposed to go there and set up everything from scratch.
For the finance division.
For finance division, and as well as in some ways for rest of the divisions also in terms of expense control.
Okay.
In simple things such as getting CapExes approved. So right from designing a template to to having all the nuances in place of what really goes into a CapEx proposal. Simple things like that. Looking at yield improvements and setting up KPIs around it. Looking at productivity improvement and setting up KPIs for that as well.
Right.
So I got that kind of opportunity, luckily. And apart from that, normally a unit controller is someone who really controls the financial aspect of the business.
Okay.
Which I mentioned some time ago about controlling the operational finance of factories. Right. It is very similar to that. So you'll have to look at cash availability, things like scrap sales, and looking at nuances like if the pricing is correct, is the system denoting the correct impact of all that is going on. So you have to ensure integrity of the ERP system that you're using. You have to keep self-auditing because nobody else is coming and going to check it for you.
Right. So generally, unit control as a role comes into picture, correct me if I'm wrong, where there is no CFO.
No, you would typically work under a CFO. So there would be a CFO, and then you would be an extension of that CFO within that unit.
So under a CFO, you might have 3-4 unit controllers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and it is specific to the location and supporting that location with all the financial requirements. So, like I said, a simple activity like controlling cash also is the responsibility of unit controller.
Right.
And there are a lot of transactions that happen in cash. So it's a very high stakes and high responsibility duty.
Yes.
And then you have to make sure that your statutory payments are happening on time. Your filings and returns are happening on time for GST, excise. Excise is not there, but it used to be there at that point in time. Then even simple things like materials goes out for processing on a certain challenge. Then you have to close those challenges when the material comes back in.
Okay.
So the entire gamut of activities, right from bookkeeping up to closure of accounts and filing of financial statements, getting the audit done, all of it comes under the purview of unit controller.
Okay.
If for any reason you have forex transactions, imports or exports, they used to have exports also. So then making sure that your foreign currency exposure is reported to the headquarters, so that appropriate covers are taken. And then tracking those covers with the bankers.
Okay.
In terms of utilization of those covers. So it's even simple things like when we imported certain equipment, it was against a commitment of exports.
Right.
So there is a way of making sure that, as in the government has this way, DGFT, so to say, that how do they know that you have done the exports or not? So there's one document which I learned at that point in time that you have to, when you do the export and you get the money from overseas, there is a document called BRC. So you have to prepare that and submit it along with all the export documents to fulfill your commitment. And why DGFT gives you is when you import the machinery, you get subsidy on duties. Against that commitment, you have to fulfill 8 times of that monetary value in exports.
Right.
So why I'm saying this is there is one level up to which a book or academia can prepare you. But out there in the industry, there's a whole new world.
Right.
And this is where you practically learn these things.
Okay.
And that's what really sets your foundation correct. So it's all a matter of taking the right interest in your job. And really,
yes, definitely.
Really rolling up your sleeves and doing everything that comes with it.
Because see, you joined being after an MBA. Normally, you would see a chartered accountant going in and doing these kind of roles.
So I was succeeded by a chartered accountant.
He was your manager, basically.
I was succeeded by a chartered accountant. So I trained him to while giving the handover.
Okay.
All the aspects of things. So yeah, he was a fresh CA out of the institute.
Okay. And from the unit controller role, you moved to an executive assistant.
No, from a unit controller, I got into FP&A role.
Sorry, yes, FP&A.
With the MNC. Yeah.
So when you were doing that unit controlling, FP&A was a part of your role.
Yes.
Now it is
It was a smaller part of role.
Ah.
So like I said, a wider role was the unit controller role. From there, I got into a deeper role into FP&A. A niche role, but far deeper.
So if you could highlight 2 or 3 things that you learned during that FP&A role.
Sure.
That could help the audience.
So FP&A, as the term itself says, involves a lot of forward-looking and predictive analysis in that sense, if I may put it. Now, of course, with the times evolving, you have AI to support you.
Right.
But back then, when I got into that career role, it was more of taking judgment calls based on historical, empirical data of how various drivers like sales, raw material cost, other major costs like manpower, and then there are so many other things in the P&L. How, when they move in certain way, how does it impact your profitability? And before that, what really makes a P&A a better person at making these judgment calls is to understand the business nuances better.
Right.
Talking to people, understanding what really is impacting their decisions.
Okay.
What are the headwinds or constraints in the markets?
Right.
Understanding your market as a whole. Keeping on reading about it, and like I said, interacting with experts in that, within the company, outside the company, even attending exhibitions. So somebody would say, why should a finance guy go to a industry exhibition? But that really tells you what the competition is doing, how their product is different from you.
Okay.
And if you understand your product very well, it would also tell you at some level what should be the costing involved.
Okay.
Because
for creating that kind of product.
Because you know your costing.
Right.
If there are X number of features, and if your competition is giving S plus 10, and still being able to manage your prices,
right,
and compete with you,
right,
then you have to have that sense to understand what they are doing, what efficiencies they must be having,
right,
to be able to sustain that and still get margins.
Right.
So these kind of competitor analysis, not just at a desk level, but at going outside in the market,
right,
talking to people. That really gives a lot of inputs to an FP&A analyst in terms of doing that predictive forecasting for their business. Typically, your source of information would be, people within your organization, your sales heads, your operations heads, who would tell you that this is the plan, this will be the resource requirement, and this is what we would be expending on, and this is the sales we would be achieving for that.
Right.
This is that you prepare your projected P&Ls and cash flow.
Right.
But where you really can add value as an FP&A guy is if you understand the business properly, you can challenge those assumptions.
Right. When you know what your competitors are doing, what is happening in the market, how raw material prices going up.
So that's when you really become an analyst and not just a postman.
Right.
If you just take inputs and give an output, what you're doing is a postman job. But when you really apply your mind, you'll have to have that kind of a sound understanding of the business.
Right.
To be able to challenge those assumptions, to verify, and again to monitor what projections you have given. Is the actuals happening against that?
Right.
If not, you should be able to correct your course of action also going forward.
Okay. Now, from that FP&A role, you move to the executive assistant role. So, first of all, what does an executive assistant do? And when you're doing that, taking that decision, what was going on in your mind? That it's a completely different role.
Correct. So, as I said, when you really get into the role, you suddenly feel that you are in that cliched term called comfort zone.
Okay.
So when you get that feeling is the right time when you have to challenge yourself for more. So when I felt that I'm into a comfort zone with an FP&A role, so just to give a context here, so within a span of 2 years, in fact within 1 year of joining the MNC, I got a promotion, which is not usual.
Generally happen,
How do I challenge myself more? Because I was at that stage of my career wherein I was thirsty for learning more.
Okay.
So then I looked out for opportunity when if I could get an opportunity to work somewhere which is much a wider role, get exposure to so many other things to do with finance and not just FP&A,
Okay.
and develop better learning, build on what I have gained. So uh, when we just spoke about in the last 5-10 minutes, what I've also hinted covered upon are soft skills.
Hmm.
So these soft skills were about stakeholder management. These soft
Yes.
skills were about really taking interest into not just the technical aspect of your work,
Right.
but also behavioral aspect,
Hmm.
dealing with stakeholders, and also taking that one step forward in terms of understanding the business better.
Okay.
So then, where do I use that now?
Okay.
Which is what the question I asked myself, and then thought about trying out an EA to the CFO role, which I felt would give me exposure into so many other things, just not just the FP&A.
When you look at the executive assistant, so generally under CFO's team,
Yes.
and I'm assuming this was a group CFO,
Group CFO. You're right.
right? So for the audience, how does a group CFO or a normal CFO different?
Sure. Typically, what we are referring to is a federal structure wherein there's a corporate and operating entities.
Okay.
So, to give an analogy, a corporate will be like a central government, and the operating entities will be like state governments.
Okay.
So, each operating entity will have their own teams, a CEO and a CFO,
Right.
a HR head, IT head, etc., etc.
Right.
And then the corporate will have their own functions, same functions: CFO, finance function, IT function, HR function, marketing function, etc.
Okay. Okay.
Supply chain is a major thing. In addition to this, there will be certain other central functions which are not there in the group entities, which will be like group strategy.
I've heard a lot about this group strategy.
Yes, it will. There will be something like ESG, sustainability, which is now
Picking up
much faster and becoming relevant about it. So much so that we are actually being required to set out separate budgets
for sustainability.
For sustainability.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because that's very soon going to impact business decisions also. So your customers have already started asking for sustainable processes, so that they qualify you to start buying from you. If you don't have those, then you're not qualified. So your competition may be on that. Then there is something known as CSR, which is also central and which is very India specific thing. But CSR division is corporate. So in this structure, the corporate finance function would typically support your operations finances. With support, what I mean is there will be tax advisory, which will be centralized.
Okay.
For income tax as well as GST. So any notices or litigations or summons, those will be managed by the corporate team with the support of the group companies.
Okay.
Then there is legal, which reports into the group CFO.
Okay.
So corporate legal is there. Then corporate secretarial is there, which will again report to the group CFO.
Okay.
So secretarial function will obviously take care of all your company related activities of the group companies. You don't have so by law you have to have group CS into each of the businesses,
right?
So based on certain share capital value. So I think it's 5 crore or something. But typically what happens is there's a corporate secretarial function which really looks at compliances all across the group.
Okay, so rather than having a full-fledged team at individual, you're having it at a corporate.
There are certain functions which are centralized. Then we have in our group, and I'm sure in many other groups also would be having this. There's a shared service center which does your invoice processing, AR and AP for all the group companies.
Right.
These would again be governed by the group CFO.
Okay.
So there would be a SSE head, but they would directly report to the group CFO.
Okay.
And typically what happens in, at least in our group, is that whenever there's expansion, brownfield or greenfield across the globe, for a certain period of time, it is run by the corporate.
Till the time it can be handed over to the individual company.
And there's an integration of various things, processes, even culture of the new entity with our
Right.
with our group. Till that time, the corporate supports the entity.
Okay.
And then there are also nuances like not in a large group, not all businesses are the same level of financial security or wherewithal.
Right.
So not all businesses can afford entire teams. So what I mean by that is the businesses which are smaller in size need not have the entire resources or entire teams on their payroll. They get a lot of support from corporate in those areas.
Okay, so at the central level,
Yes.
you have a full-fledged team who is basically helping them.
Helping them out.
Now, from there you move to the MD's team.
Yes.
So, what was the difference in the scope, and how your activities actually changed?
Yeah, so with the group CFO's team and briefly touching about few specific nuances in that, it was more about financial analysis, deep diving into the statutory audit process, the internal audit process of the group, overseeing all that. Then driving synergies between the finance teams of various operating entities, bringing them together,
Right.
sharing resources, driving group CFO offices initiatives. All those were part of CFO's team when I was part of that team. When I moved into the MD office role, it became much more than finance. Of course, finance was at the core of it because that's what my basic qualification is. But over here, it is not restricted to that. Again, with that hunger for learning more, when I picked up other things working in cross-functional teams in my previous role,
Right.
I also got acquainted, and by the amount of time spent in the organization and in the industry, I've acquainted myself with other functions, activities also.
Okay.
In the group, in the MD's office, anything and everything that has to do with the business is now under your purview.
Okay.
So the MD has to look at everything: IT, finance, HR, marketing, sales, strategy, all of it.
Okay.
So many things would come to your desk. You have to sort of make sense of data, draw insights out of it, and then support your leadership with those insights for decision making. That's the primary role in as many simple words. So my job is to make my boss's job easier.
Right.
In one line.
Right. Agreed. Because based on your input, he's going to take some decision.
Yes. And it also involves a lot of responsibility when I say that. And awareness about what's going on, again, within the business and outside the business also. So when you make a statement, prepare an insight, or make a conclusion, all your experience has to come together.
Right.
Not just the number that you're looking at.
Right.
So you have to understand, say for example, if there's a new expansion to be done, adding a few more machines in a particular plant, then you have to really understand the nuances of, is the plant first of all fully utilized? Is that investment required right now? Ask those kind of questions.
Okay.
And just not, if there's a proposal coming to you, then you have to just not look at the numbers, but at the back of the mind, you should be aware of what are the realities on ground.
Okay.
In order to be able to understand those numbers and then ask these questions.
Right.
This is where I make the life of my boss easier.
Right.
Instead of him sitting and asking these questions. I have to look at whether it's going to the required decision is going to help the organization in saving costs, improving quality, or being better at customer service.
Right.
So these would be the categories which would again drive further analysis in that direction. Looking at those KPIs, how are they getting better?
Okay. Now, if anybody wants to enter into this executive assistant role, what are the few skill sets that person should look at? And is there a trajectory that he can follow from your experience?
These are very niche roles, Ganesh, if you really ask me. And typically, it's more about how you, like I said, how you prepare yourself and the kind of value you add to your business. And then you're getting noticed while doing that.
Right.
So, like I said, I was ear to the group CFO, and that was after adding value in my previous role, which obviously got tested and questioned. Only then I was given that opportunity. Then I had to prove myself in that role and get noticed, and I got picked up by the MD to support the business and his office. In terms of qualification, the qualification can be anything.
Okay.
The approach is more to do with taking, and this is a software aspect of it that works more in this case. To really taking interest in your job, doing the best on it, and really exceeding expectations at all possible opportunities.
Okay.
Really be demonstrating that you are willing to take on higher responsibilities. Because again, like I said, in the group CFO's office, I was dealing with all the leadership.
Right.
So that responsibility doesn't go down. It in fact increases when you work closer to the MD.
Right.
So, and when you're at that level, you're also looked upon as somebody who's knowledgeable. So you have to be on your toes in terms of everything to do with your job, with your business. So you have to, as a trajectory or as a homework or understanding, you have to really keep on learning and be on your toes about everything to do with what you're doing.
Okay.
So, like I said, being aware of how machines work, what is the drivers of your business in terms of cost as well as sales, how the market is behaving, how your industry is behaving, how competitors are doing.
Right.
So these things, being a part of the MD's office, it has to be on your fingertips.
Right.
So it's really a journey. There's no clear path, if you ask me, but it's all about how much work you are putting in and how you're demonstrating and adding value again to your group.
Got it. So generally, when you're saying an MD's office, is it only an executive assistant, or he has a proper team within that strategy team primarily?
So, yes. So it can be a combination of many things.
Okay.
And it, like I said, it is niche and it is very, very subjective. So depending on the requirement, size of business, there are different complexities. Nowadays, there are many startups. So in their case, it could be a one-man army who would deal with everything.
Right.
And in some other cases where there are other complexities, the larger the group, there could be a larger office also. There could be the size could be even 50 people assisting the MD.
Right.
And looking at different aspects of the business in different industries also. So depending on the size of the group, the size really is different. It could be different. And also the areas where the MD really wants to focus on. So there are certain things which are pet projects of the managing director. And this is also relevant in many family-driven businesses also.
Right.
So in those pet projects, they want to have direct control. So they would depute somebody from their team or hire someone who's directly under them,
right,
driving that particular project.
Right.
Then there are general things which are normally overseen by any EA. Then there are specific things which could be like driving automation and AI. That's the new thing coming up.
Yes.
So driving those kind of new initiatives across the group. There could be a specific 4 or 5 member team for doing that.
Okay.
Then many of the managing directors or families have family offices within the
This is a new trend, and we see a lot of family offices getting registered in Dubai, Singapore.
Yeah. Yes. So even that's another opportunity within the managing director's office, which is again very, very niche, very, very specific, and works directly under the MD as well as their family now. So this is something which is equally important, but outside the purview of the business. So you will have not just one boss, but the entire family members, all of them, how many ever are there, could be your bosses. They would have their own requirements, which get solved through family office. So a family office would typically have their own accountants, their own lawyers, and their own administrative people, estate managers.
Wow.
All of this could be there. So
So this could also be a part of the MD's office.
Yes.
Could be, okay, depending upon the size.
It is where I'm working currently. It is. So
Achha.
I also lead the family office for my group.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Now, in terms of your learning in the industry for 15 years, if you could share few things that you learned as a professional, which helped you to grow, or some advice that you got from your senior or industry people that actually changed your career path.
So I think this is more of an individual trait, and one really has to work on this and build it. Is that you have to basically catch hold or grab any opportunity that comes your way. Opportunity could be in terms of any challenge thrown at you, any new project,
Right.
or stretch assignments, or whatever. Or if that is not the case, then even within your work, your routine operations,
Yeah.
always try and do something more. Try and think how you can better your work profile.
Okay.
That's where you will also find ways to simplify your work, and that's where you'll also find more interesting aspects which really improve you as a person in that domain.
Okay.
And obviously you get noticed by all the hard work that you're putting in. So there is no shortcut to hard work, to be honest. Another thing that really changed my perspective was that when I asked somebody what do they do, and they said that always focus on how you can make your boss's life easier. That would really pave your way to success, as in if by your work you're able to support him to grow, then he would definitely return the
Help you to
favor
grow also. Right.
in many ways. And it also shows your maturity or your willingness to take more responsibilities also.
Right.
In many ways. So it's about not shying away from problems, but stepping forward and accepting them. So one interesting thing as an anecdote is I always used to get scared of cash flow statements when I during my work, my school college days rather. Being a person who's done his high school or 11th, 12th, as we say, in science, and then moving to a commerce vertical, I was never really comfortable with that particular thing. I was always scared. But someone and my teachers essentially gave me the advice that the more you run away from it, the more it will catch up to you. So you rather embrace it. So today's situation is that if I look at a balance sheet, I'm able to understand which way the cash is moving. And that is really a very important aspect of any finance career professional.
Right.
Ultimately, cash is the king, as is the anecdote.
Yes.
So, and even your bosses, your promoters, all they're interested in what cash the business is generating. So that's the bottom line always. It's not profit.
It's the cash.
It's not sales. It's cash.
Right.
So that's what I picked up. I learned and built on it. And in terms of tackling any situation, what I am often told is that I have to think and work like a Navy SEAL in my role. So what nobody is willing to take hold of or tackle or manage in terms of initiatives or problems in the organization, but still those are important to be addressed, and somebody has to do it. Then I'm supposed to do it as EA to the MD.
Wonderful. One final question: youngsters के लिए क्या advice है जो finance में enter करना चाहते हैं?
Youngsters के लिए ये advice है that when you are doing your qualifications, whichever they would be very, very focused on them. Make the best use of that time. Learn your basics very well. So in bookkeeping, we start with those 3 rules.
Golden rules.
Trust me, आज भी वो important है. You won't be surprised कि अगर आप मिड करियर पहुंचोगे 45 इयर्स के हो जाओगे, तब भी आपको पूछा जाएगा कि अगर आपने इन्वेंट्री सेल ऑफ कर दिया तो क्या एंट्री आएगी बुक में. ट्रस्ट मी ऑन दैट. सो यू हैव टू बिल्ड योर फाउंडेशंस वेरी वेरी स्ट्रांग. डोंट जस्ट थिंक कि ये तो बहुत इजी है, ये क्या है, या मुझे नहीं आता, नहीं करना है. एवरीथिंग इज इम्पोर्टेंट. यू हैव टू लर्न योर वे थ्रू योर while getting qualified. Then once you enter industry, apply all of that and don't shy away from any challenges. As I was mentioning, each challenge would help you grow, help you learn, and help you get noticed, more importantly. And always keep on upskilling is what I would say is also very essential. So we mentioned somewhere in between about AI. So I am right now, as we speak, there is a AI project going on in our organization. Last year we implemented in a very limited sense to build a budgeting tool, which allows me and my boss to. So I was part of the implementation team. So it allows me to analyze data for last 10 years at each group entity level.
Okay.
So that AI tool is going to be built upon further. So a lot of upskilling that was required at the back end in terms of me learning the nuances of that.
Okay.
And then helping and supporting, being that bridge between finance and IT to help build that tool.
Okay.
So you never know what you would really be thrust into. So it's always essential to keep upskilling. Try and learn whatever latest trends are coming up.
Right.
Pick up skills. There are wonderful, well-proven certifications like CFA, FRM, CPA that are there. CA, of course, everybody knows about it. Then there are certifications under ACCA. And you would be surprised, many of them are free of cost also. There's a lot available.
A lot of content available.
Lot available these days on online, on edX and Coursera platforms.
Yes.
Even many universities and Ivy League universities based in USA are offering free courses.
Yes. There's MIT courseware where you can learn everything on free.
Yes. I was, so as part of my area of work in the current organization, since one of them being family office. So I was online though, but it was very fulfilling for me. Before that, on my own also, I picked up courses which were free of cost in that specific domain. So keep learning. You never know what might help you where.
Right, exactly.
So and it is even more relevant now with new things coming up like Python, R,
yes,
and all those things. So a couple of years back, when COVID was on, I enrolled myself at IIM Lucknow to learn predictive analytics using R.
Okay.
So that also helped in a big way in building that tool.
Achha, the AI-based tool.
Yeah. So you never know what comes helpful there.
Wonderful. I mean, this conversation is going to be really helpful, especially when the audience is going to be hearing about the executive assistant role or the MD's team or the CFO's team, which generally we don't hear much about. And also you talk about the family office. So these career opportunities are also there in the industry, which the audience or the candidate can learn from our podcast. So again, Sarovar Sir, thank you very much for taking out time and talking to us.
Most welcome, Ganesh. Pleasure to be here as always. Thank you.